Okay, so you can hear me well, right? Perfect. Thank you. So I think we are gonna start in a couple of minutes.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Maureen.
Hello.
Okay, so I would say to start. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the participants and our speakers. I have the privilege to open this event of Soroptimis International Young Forum in collaboration with Women 7 Italy. I'm Alice Pomè. I'm a Soroptimist from Italy, part of the steering group of Soroptimist International Youth Forum, which is the body of Soroptimist International responsible for the organization of this webinar, but also responsible for connecting the different young Soroptimists all over the world. The collaboration between Soroptimist International and Women 7 is of great significance, and this year it has been further strengthened by the Italian unions of Soroptimist International active involvement in the organization committee of Women 7. I'm delighted to present to you today with the support of one of the three co-chairs of Women 7 Italy, Martina Rogato, that I really thank for all participation here today, and the three of the advisors responsible for writing the communiqué that the Women 7 present at the G7. Ebony Westman, Shahrbanu Haidari, and Mama Sampy. The outcomes of Women 7 2024 in Italy and the vision for the future. In the chat, you can find the bios that we are going to share very soon that presents the speakers of today. Before turning the floor over to our panelists, I would like to briefly introduce Soroptimist International for those who may not be familiar with this organization and especially with its mission. Founded in 1921, Soroptimist International is a global volunteer movement with a network of around 65,000 club members into around 120 countries. Advocating for human rights and gender equality at the heart of Soroptimist International advocacy is its work across 7 UN centers where the UN representatives ensure that the voice of all women and girls are heard. Our membership work on grassroots projects that help women and girls achieve their individual and collective potential, realize aspirations, and have an equal voice in communities worldwide. With the mission of transforming lives and status of women and girls through education, empowerment, and enabling opportunities, the principle of Soroptimists are to strive for the advancement of the status of women, high ethical standards, human rights for all, equality, development, and peace, and finally, the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace. This is why, almost 2 years ago, we decided to establish a forum dedicated to amplifying the voices of young members within the organization. The Youth Forum serves as a platform where young Soroptimists from around the globe can connect, exchange ideas, share their needs, and address challenges specific to the pivotal age group. Including this demographic in the development of international policies is essential to building inclusive societies that cater to everyone's needs and prioritize sustainable development. Today, joining me in the organization and moderating of this event, we have also Sofia Calicchio from the United States and Celine Wangiri from Kenya. They are both young representatives for Soroptimist International at the UN Center in New York and Nairobi. So to open our event, I'm pleased to introduce the international president of Soroptimist International, Siu Young Nyana Link Gam, that unfortunately had not the opportunity to join us today, but she would like to introduce the organization and open the event through a video.
Alice, it's Pat here. We have technical problem. We can't hear
Oh,
President Young.
I'm so sorry. I will reshare my screen.
Thank you.
Warm greetings to everyone. I'm Suyang Nyanalingam, President of Soroptimist International. I'm sorry that I'm not able to join you in person at this event run by the Soroptimist International Youth Forum. However, I'm honored to share this message with you. W7's mission to embed gender perspectives in G7 discussions and reflect them in the G7 Leaders' Declaration through policies that promote gender equality and economic empowerment for women and girls closely aligns with Soroptimist International goals in educating, empowering, and enabling women and girls in all their diversity. In 2024, Italy has held the presidency of W7 and chose to focus on crucial areas including labor, economic justice, financial empowerment, violence against women and girls, climate justice, and peace and security. Many of these issues are key to Soroptimist International's mission to drive transformative change through education and empowering women and girls. I wholeheartedly agree with W7's calls to G7 to ensure equal representation of all women and girls in all levels of decision-making and placing gender equity at the heart of decision-making and leadership. W7 underscores the importance of transparent, gender and age-sensitive, disaggregated data and calls for the creation of gender and intergenerational impact assessments. It advocates for age and gender transformative education by promoting investments in social infrastructure and lifelong learning programs, alongside campaigns to foster awareness. W7 also stresses the adoption of accountability frameworks to monitor, evaluate, and adjust the gendered impacts of public policies and multilateral commitments. Soroptimist International continues to be a leading voice within the W7 to amplify women's voices and lived experiences in policy discussions, striving for a future where women and girls' rights are prioritized worldwide. In this year of the anniversary of the UN Resolution 1325, Soroptimist International continues to commit wholeheartedly to the women, peace and security agenda, pressing at all times for women to be at the table. Let us continue to bring our unique perspectives and strengths to tackle the urgent and critical challenges facing women and girls worldwide. Our mission for a fair, just and sustainable world must remain steadfast. I thank you all.
Okay, so we can start with our first panel, that is Martina Rogato. I really would like to thank Martina. Martina is one of the three co-chairs of Women 7 Italy, and she has more than 13 years of experience into consultant specialization, especially into sustainability, sustainable development, and diversity. She is an adjunct professor at different universities based in Italy, and she is working as an activist for human rights. So I would like to let Martina introduce the outcomes and the recognized success of the work of Women 7 Italy, and what significant challenges remain unresolved also after the presentation of the communique of Women 7 Italy. Please, Martina, the floor is yours.
Good morning, good evening. Thank you so much for this invitation. And also thanks to the World Solar Optimist, Italy and International for supporting our world presidency this year. Solar Optimist Italy is part of the Italian Presidential Committee of the W7. Plus, I saw some familiar friends here. I saw Pat Black, for example, and supporting since a while the W7. And I see Alice here. That was really a milestone for our presidency. So, really, thank you so much for your support beyond this important event. We are very grateful. Well, talking about the W7, we are the official G7 group on gender equity and also considering an intersectional lens. And I think that one of the most important success of the W7 is has been to involve 80 advisors, not just from the G7 countries, but also from every region in the world, in total involving 42 countries, different countries. And I thank you so much, our advisors that here are sharing with us their expertise and experiences. So we decided for this presidency not to have just a G7 focus in terms of recommendation creations. And we worked 6 months in order to create a communique, so an official document of recommendation that we present to the Italian government last May. So, firstly, let me say that we agreed consensus on this document, and let's imagine that we have 80 advisors from 42 countries with different perspectives, ideas, and each of these persons representing their own organization in their country, working on gender equity and or labor and or violence against women and climate justice and so on. So the biggest success is agreed via consensus with these huge no-profit organization participations. Secondly, we had a very strong relationship with the Italian government. We work with them openly, not just with the Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's team and Sherpa office, but also with a dedicated ministry like the Ministry of Equal Opportunity, of Labor, and of Disability. So we create a fruitful, open dialogue with the institutions this year, including really a strong dialogue with the European Commissioner Elena Dalli, that I officially thank so much for supporting the Bull W this year. We had also a strong dialogue with civil society organizations. We have an Italian committee where there is also Solar Optimist of 12 no-profit organizations. And before delivering our recommendation, we consulted in Italy plus 200 associations. So our recommendation really are the voice of civil society organizations on 5 main: empowerment and economic justice, on fighting against the violence against women and gender-based violence, climate justice, and women, peace, and security. In terms of content, I would say that this year, for the first time, we had a leaders declaration that includes gender consideration, not just in a dedicated chapter. But if you read the leaders declaration, you will find mention to gender equity and equality in the whole document, including focused chapter addressed to specific countries. So I think that gender mainstream arrived in the leaders declaration, and this is a big success in order to push G7 countries and world governments on introducing this gender lens. From one end, we are satisfied of this. To the other hand, we must say that the intersectionality is missing inside that document, and there is just one mention on LGBT QI plus rights and community. Second things, we really appreciate and we are very happy that there is a focus on women, peace and security, and also a focus on climate justice with a gender perspective. And I think this is a great success of the W7 Italy this year, because these two topics are among our pillars and priorities. To the other hand, let me say that the document didn't consider women, climate refugees, and considering the recent COP in Azerbaijan is not a good news. Also, that the G7 is forgetting refugees related to war situation or climate situation and women. And to the other hand, I think concerning climate change, is very important that the document is finally having a good paragraph, also analyzing the relationship between gender issues and climate justice and climate change. But what is missing, and we didn't expect this, we were very skeptical on achieving this goal. To the other hand, let me say that mitigation strategies are missing there. So you just focus on adaptation, but the mitigation part is quite shy. But talking about good news, we are very proud of the fact that there is an explicit mention on gender certifications that recognize the role that companies can have on supporting gender equity. And lots of our organizations in Italy worked a lot on the content of the Italian gender certification, and having a public recognition of this certification is something very important, because that certification in Italy is not mandatory, is voluntary, but is having some, let's say, economic effects in terms of tax relief, plus has an impact in terms of having a high ranking in public and private tenders. So it's voluntary with specific incentives. And we believe that is a good practice. The Italian certification is a good practice because civil society organizations supporting the creation of specific KPIs and qualitative indicators, and is a disclosure of a set of data, not just a blah, blah, blah of high level policies. It's not the sole, but I believe that companies could key role and is a way for pushing mention on this, and we believe that it could be a good example. So happy for the gender mainstreaming, not so happy about the limited mention to intersectionality and LGBTQI plus. Happy on labor, not so happy on the climate justice mitigation absence, and on let's say the lack of a mention on climate refugees and refugees in terms of women and girls. But overall, we can say our expectations weren't so high, and we can be satisfied because the majority of the text of the text of our recommendation is there. And this goal has been achieved thanks to our advisors and also thanks to a very focused advocacy and lobbying activities with the Italian government and with the G7 Sherpas. The W7 has also a sort of international committee with all the past and future presidency, including Canada, and they play a very important role for having good relationship with other G7 Sherpas team. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martina. Thank you for sharing with us your ideas and the critical role you had as a co-chair of Women 7 in supporting this I would say the connection with the G7 of Italy. I know that you had other appointments today because you have classes today. So I know that at a certain point you must leave, but from every one of us today, thank you very much for joining us. And I would also tell the participants that if you have any questions, please write into the chat. And at the end, there are going to be a question and answer part for closing this event. So going on with our agenda, I would like to give the floor to my colleague Sofia, that she's gonna moderate the roundtable with three amazing advisors for this Women 7 Italy 2024.
Thank you, Alice. Yes, now we will transition into our roundtable discussion with W7 advisors, Ebony Westman, Shahrbanu Haidari, and Mama Sampy. A reminder that you can find their bios in the chat as we're speaking. And we have developed a set of questions for our advisors here today, but another reminder that we will have a Q&A session after this discussion. So if you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to start putting them in the chat, and then we will try to get those answered later. So our first questions for our roundtable today is, with what mission did you become an advocate leader, and how do you apply intersectionality as a practice in your advocacy to amplify specific issue areas effectively? And we can go in the order of Ebony, Shahrbanu, and then Mama.
Thank you, Sophia. I just want to start by saying thank you so much for having me here today. I've been really looking forward to this conversation and to hear from my W7 colleagues, and I really appreciated that framing from you, Martina, as well, about the W7 work. It was fantastic. So also to kick off, I'm calling in from Australia, and so I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which I'm calling in from today, the Larrakia people, and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded in Australia. So to your questions, I think the mission of which I came to this work, I was always really passionate about justice. I always felt quite, I guess, hot-headed about injustices, and I always felt, I felt big things about gender difference as well between me and my brother, but I didn't really have the words to describe it until I got to university and I started engaging with feminist thinkers and feminist activists as well in my community. And that really started me sort of thinking about this journey of gender justice and feminism as a way to do that. And then when I was studying my master's in gender studies, I engaged with Choice for Youth and Sexuality, which are a fantastic organization based in the Netherlands that are entirely youth-run and youth-led and advocate for sexual reproductive health and rights, and including young people in meaningful ways around decisions that affect their lives. So sort of through that avenue, I really met a lot of transnational feminists and advocates and youth activists, and felt extremely inspired. And that sort of carried me on to where I am today, which I think is more broadly thinking about gender justice, and through that thinking about increasing peace, freedom, and justice for everyone. So the second question around intersectionality, I think, is really important, and I think it's important to think about intersectionality on a systems and structures level, and then also on a personal level. So intersectional analysis as a framework of understanding interlinked systems of oppression, systems of power, which work to privilege or oppress people based upon their lived experience. That is really critical for us and me to keep in mind when doing advocacy work, constantly asking, what are the intersecting forms of power here and how are they playing out in people's lived realities? So we're thinking about colonization, capitalism, the heteropatriarchy. How are these systems informing people's lived experiences and their experience of oppression or privilege in different spaces? And I think that comes through really strongly in the W7 communique as well. There's some language at the top there really framing this intersectional awareness, specifically in the context of peace means different things to different people based upon their lived experience. And peace in Yemen might mean something different from someone in peace in Sudan, because the experience of conflict might be different as well based upon that, who they are and where they're situated. So that's the sort of systems thing. But I think another critical point is a personal reflection, and I find this important in my advocacy around my own experience of privilege or oppression in various spaces. And for me, it's a commitment to reflection and accountability, decentering whiteness, decentering Western Eurocentric thought, really seeking out expertise and advice from leaders in the majority world, and having accountability to be aware of the way I also exist in these systems.
Thank you so much, Ebony. And thank you for sharing your lived experiences as well as sharing, a reflection of the institutions that we work in and how sometimes we have to navigate some of these institutional barriers and always being mindful of the continued colonization of these institutions as well. So over to you, Shahrbanu.
Hello, everyone. And thank you for having me on this panel. And I was looking forward to this discussion and hearing from the colleagues W7, and especially what the Martina told and what we have done through the W7 this year. It was amazing. But about the question, to be honest, for me, this mission is really deeply personal. As a woman, I grew up in Afghanistan and have lived through many injustices in Afghanistan. And also, as a Hazara woman, I belong to a community that faced genocide, violence, and long-term discrimination. And also, coming from a countryside and lower class family, I have been seeing how people, especially women, are excluded from the mistreated because who they are. So this experience actually pushed me to become an advocate with a mission to amplify the voice of underrepresented people and fight for justice and equity for women and marginalized groups. I'm working to ensure their story and their struggle are heard, and also not just give them a platform, and also to challenge the system and beliefs that create this injustice at the first place. The situation of Afghanistan nowadays is heartbreaking, really, and suffering of women and marginalized group cannot be ignored. Women have been erasing from public life, denied education beyond the age of 12 years old, restricted in their rights to employment, deprived of freedom of movement, freedom of speech, and even their access to basic health service is severely limited now. On top of that, they face growing personal challenges, a lot of challenges in their personal life. And when Taliban are violating women's rights in public, these all oppression are naturally transformed to their home. And for example, domestic violence has increased in Afghanistan. Child marriage are rising, forced marriage are occurring, and many women and girls are turning to suicide out of despair. And my mission is to amplify the voice of women. And here, let me to read a text from our student in Afghanistan. She's living in Afghanistan. She's one of our students in our English course. And she wrote that day, when the Taliban took over Afghanistan, I told myself that there is no girl named Zahra with dreams of success anymore. During these 3 years, they have hurt the feelings and pride of girls and women of Afghanistan, either publicly or privately. Like other girls and women, I don't have the right to study, nor to live a peaceful life. I have to take big risk in order to leave home. Every day, the Taliban make a new law and make life more difficult for the people and women, especially for Hazaras. In the beginning, it wasn't so difficult for girls to go out, but now they have made a law that no woman or girl can get into a taxi without the mahram or hijab. Even in their new law, they have said that women go to shopping or bazaar, they shouldn't talk to any shopkeeper. If they want to buy something, they should point or write it on the paper. They consider it as a crime for girls to study, but they say we should write something on paper. How can we do it without studying? They created a 14-page law, and they also mention it, the punishment for those who do not follow it. And she add also, being a girl in Afghanistan is a big crime. We are just alive, but we don't live. So this is the text we are receiving from inside Afghanistan, and I just wanted to use this opportunity to share a little bit of this story from inside Afghanistan. And personally, me and my team, we believe in order to have a peaceful life for everyone, like women, people in Afghanistan, we need to have an intersectional advocacy approach. Intersectionality is a core of our advocacy, for example, and also it is really related to my personal experience, like being I was suffering from like the gender discrimination, ethnic identity, religion, and also and class also. And for example, in ASCD, our organization, we are implementing 2 key projects. One of them is like having an English course and mentorship program inside Afghanistan for in a remote area of Afghanistan, which this girl, they are coming from the low level underprivileged families, and their geographical situation limit their access to the many resources, for example, internet. Even they don't have access properly to internet to like connect to people and to study online. So that's why we are implementing our project in person. And we are trying to empower them to like overcome these obstacles and access the better opportunity. The second project is like we have the End Gender Apartheid campaign in Afghanistan, so which we ran it with the collaboration of the European Hub of Politics for Her. Politics for Her is a feminist youth-led NGO advocating for inclusive participation of women and girls in politics, civil society, and social justice. So through this campaign, we have written like more than 50 articles all about Afghanistan and women of Afghanistan, and intersecting these many layers, for example, climate change, reproductive health of women in Afghanistan, intersecting marginalized group, for example, LGBTQA+, and also like the ethnic different ethnic groups, and how Taliban are treating the different ethnics in different way. And also resistance. And we are writing about how women of Afghanistan they are resisting against this oppressed regime. As you know, many times the people are thinking women of Afghanistan as a victim, just, but we want to say they are not just victim. They are agent of change, and they are resisting actually inside Afghanistan. They are taking to the street. They are singing. They are writing. They are making slogan, and they are challenging this system. But you know, the the situation is like that. It is really hard to resist against the Taliban and fight against the Taliban. Like, so that's why this is our work, and I will stop. I don't want to talk a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahrbanu, and thank you so much for sharing the powerful message from your student, and also not only amplifying the voices of women in Afghanistan and all over the world, but also giving us a little bit of an overview of some of the projects that you have to also offer some solutions as well that you're doing. So I will pass the floor to Mama now.
Hi everyone, I hope that you can hear me. So my name is Mama Sampy, and some of you guys know me. I'm like your baby little sisters among all the advisors and all the activists that are right here. And I'm really happy to be among you and then share my experiences with you guys. And I may say that's the mission, like why I became an advocate leader. I think it's because I'm driven by a profound commitment of championing gender equality and advancing girls' rights, particularly fight against child marriage, inequality to have access to education, and the recent hunger crisis and climate changes in my community. I may say that witnessing firsthand the impact of child marriage and educational disparity, I believe that I should be like an example for my little sister, the younger girls among my community, to empower them and then to show them that they can and they should stand up for their rights, to have access to equality, to have access to education, to be able to express their needs and like have a world where they can thrive, they can have access to education, they can live free from discrimination and violences. And as you may know, I'm from Mali, if I forgot to mention that one. I'm from Mali, and it's like the Sahel area in Africa. And that it's really hard to live as a young girl or a young woman because you have many discrimination that you face, such as VBGs, child marriage, forced marriage, and many of the girls, they don't have like they're scared. They're scared to go up to go in the front row and then make decisions for themselves, speak their mind so that the decisions that are taken reflect their needs. They want to be in the front row to say that I'm a girl, I'm a young woman. This is what needs to be done for me to achieve, to have to success in life, to be a successful person. And considering the intersectionality that I like to combine with my advocacy, I may say that intersectionality should be, if it's not, but you should put it in your advocacy. It should be the beating heart of your advocacy, because we recognize that gender inequality intersects with various social identities, including ethnicity, social economic status, and disability. And I think that we should prioritize understanding the diverse experience of girls and young women in all their identities, whether by shape, age, ethnicity, economic status, or displacements. And I can like take, for example, the fact that in our Women, Peace and Security part in the Women 7 communique, we emphasize the importance of addressing emerging threats like climate change, cybersecurity, through the intersectionality lens. And then with this approach, we can ensure that the solutions are inclusive, and reflect the reality of those that are most affected. And from my part was to add to this one the experiences and then the voice of girls from Mali, and then to allow people to see a little bit of what is happening there, and then so that their voice can be taken into account, like so that their thinking, their belief, the what need to be done for us to achieve like peace and security, to achieve like women right to it fully. And then I think that's my mission, and I think that's how we apply the intersectionality in our advocacies.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you for sharing your mission and how important it is to really center intersectionality and even multidimensionality when we talk about advocacy and how we want our advocacy to be reflected in policies and laws. And so our next set of questions for you all is, in your view, what are the biggest obstacles to achieving full gender equality and equity within the current global financial infrastructure? And what strategies do you consider essential to ensure women's inclusive representation and participation in decision-making bodies, especially in promoting safe, equitable labor and advancing peace and security? And we'll go in the same order.
I guess that's me first. Thanks, Sophia. Thank you for these questions, and thank you, Mama and Shahrbanu, for those reflections. They were really powerful, and I'm very grateful for you sharing them. So I think the biggest barrier is the global rise of militarization, and I think the prioritizing military spending is completely at odds with achieving gender equality, and of course also completely at odds with gender justice. And in 2020, this year, 2024, we saw global expenditure on military rise for the 9th consecutive year to reach an all-time high. So the message that that's sending is that there's a support of violence supporting beliefs, which like these beliefs that underpin militarism, I think are violence supporting narratives, domination, extraction, exploitation, and oppression, which are completely at odds, I would argue, with the values of gender equality and feminist movements, which would rather prioritize collaboration, care, interrelatedness, sustainability, and transforming harmful systems. So I think while states continue to prioritize military spending, there can be no real meaningful change to gender equality, because it's like handing out guns and band-aids at the same time. It's just incompatible. And we also know that a rise of military spending and the rise of militarism is linked to reinforcing gender stereotypes and increasing gender-based violence as well. So again, there's just intrinsic incompatibilities in these two different beliefs and priorities. So I think that is the main barrier, in my opinion. And WILP, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, write really wonderfully about this and are much more articulate than I am. So I would definitely recommend checking that website out and reading some of their resources if you're interested. And then in terms of the strategies to enable participation in women, peace and security and equitable labor, I think, first of all, we need increased accountability from states. So specifically thinking about women, peace and security commitments that nation states have, we need increased accountability and transparency around how they are meeting those commitments and how they're going about meaningfully engaging with women and girls in all of their diversity. So Mama Sampy, also you spoke so well there about the need for diverse voices around the table and really centering that and prioritizing that in seeking input from people. So I think increased transparency and accountability from states. And secondly, I think it's really important that we remove barriers to women participating, women in all of their diversity. So for instance, we know that women do the majority of care work and have the majority of care responsibilities. What happens then when we ask women to come and engage in civil society dialogues? How do they get the extra time if we're not sort of removing some of those barriers? So a really practical material thing could be if states are seeking to engage local communities and enable participation, provide free childcare. Just thinking really practically about what are some barriers and how can you account for that in your planning. And then I think also just sort of lastly tying to that, I think a strategy is increased funding for women's rights organizations and feminist organizations and civil society organizations, because we know that these movements outside of government are so instrumental in pushing change and having a really situated understanding of the needs of the communities, because these organizations and groups are situated in these communities. So increased accountability and transparency for government, removing barriers for participation, and funding civil society and feminist organizations would be my 3 wish list strategies.
Thank you, Ebony. And I think you just echoed every activist's main top 3 wishes out of all these world systems. And I love how you put it earlier when you said it's like giving guns and band-aids at the same time. I think that's the perfect description of a lot of the things that are going on in the world right now. And it's just a reminder of how we should continue to be demanding accountability and also not settle for, tokenization or, understanding that before we even get to inclusion, we need to tackle representation and what that looks like. So thank you so much. And now I'll pass the floor to Shahrbanu.
Thank you. I really do agree with what Ebony told us, and the rising militarization, conflict, crisis. It's really is a challenge for what's going on, and for like current global financial structure. What's going on like in Afghanistan, like in Gaza, Ukraine for more than 2 years, and what's going on in just yesterday, or I guess what's going on in Syria. I guess there is a conflict, and this all well, try to distract people from focusing on gender equality and equity. So, and this is I totally do agree with this, and also unequal access to resources, women and marginalized group, gender, especially like in contact, for example, in Afghanistan, face legal, cultural, and barrier limited your access to banking, to credit, to investment opportunity. So this is one of the challenges. For example, in conflict and crisis, the corruption will be increased. So this will be also a challenge, and also it will be lack of the gender sensitive funding for this area. And for mechanism, like the strategy, I think really about increasing the accountability mechanism, and also mechanism for documenting what's going on, and human rights violation and women rights violation, what's going on like in Syria, what's going on in Gaza. We really need to mechanism that documents what's these violations, to then we can go to the mechanism, accountability mechanism. For example, in Afghanistan, we don't have this documentation mechanism we can take all of this documentation to the ICC and ICJ or other international court. So it's really I guess I really need to have this mechanism, like documentation mechanism, and also the accountability mechanism. But I noticed, like, for example, I'm really from a grassroots organization, and I'm coming from Afghanistan. In so many situations, there are like documents, for example, resolution 1325. It's really important, and it is talking about the participation, protection of women, and participation of women in like the peace negotiation, peace tables. But they are all are undocumented. We are not implementing it really in many situations. For example, in Afghanistan case or the other, in so many cases I can see it's like in negotiation table. They are not women. They are not women. They are not like fully participate in this negotiation, this table to make decision about what's going on for their country, like to stop the war or stop the conflict and crisis or increase it. So I guess we need the lack of documentation, like the lack of the plans also is a big problem, but we need to in response of that to update for example, WPS plans for each country, and also try to implement really what we have on the table for international law. We have it already, but we can't implement it. We can't take many like Taliban or like the people who are committing the violence, we can't take them to the accountability mechanism. This is another problem for issue or challenge that why we cannot. So for example, the Security Council of UN, and they had so many meetings for like ceasefire in Gaza, but they couldn't achieve like finally to an agreement to have this ceasefire in Gaza. We have so many things in documentation like mechanism, but we are not able to implement it. It is also a challenge, and we need to find out how we can really implement this document, this mechanism, accountability mechanism.
Thank you, Shahrbanu, for talking and expanding on our discussion about accountability frameworks and mechanisms and whether, they're working or not. I think it's more not at this point. And I think that that is even personally when I'm involved in a lot of youth spaces, a lot of youth advocacy spaces, no matter the advocacy topic that is being talked about, but a lot of the frustration that comes from the youth, and I think a lot of civil society, is how do we get these countries to be accountable for what they're talking about in these international spaces, and then they go back home and they don't implement anything. And it's really a very surreal experience to me to be in some of these rooms of the UN in New York and listening to these countries speak. And then the next day I see the news and they do the exact opposite of what they said in their speeches. And so I think that is something that as advocates, we need to keep thinking about and to really, how do we get these countries to be accountable and really making these changes where it really matters and not just talking about them. And now I want to pass the floor to Mama to answer these questions as well.
Okay, so I think one of the major obstacles we need to pass on is just like it's the chronic underfunding of women-led and grassroots organization. I may say because those organizations are the one that they make meaningful changes. The one that they go to women in grassroots level, they go to girls in need, and then they take their need into account. They are the one making the real action. So they need to have funding, and it's crucial for them to have funding, and then for them to have like tools that they need for their advocacy to be able to help the girls and then the young women in need. And additionally, I will talk about the patriarchal norm that embedded within our financial system, and then that result in the inequitability of distribution of resources and the limited participation of women in decision-making roles and girls. Like, decisions are made for women and girls. So why don't we have like the same women or the same women that represent those girls and young women in the front row of the seat to make those decisions? It's about their life. It's the decision will affect their daily life. It will affect their future. So I think the obstacle that we need to go to sorry, to the biggest obstacle that is like in front of like of achieving like gender equality is the two major obstacles that I just talk about. That is the underfunding of women and grassroots level organization, and then the patriarchal norms that is embedded within our financial system, and that stop women from participating in decision-making roles, that's and then to stop decisions that like affect their daily life. And I think I will agree with what my fellow colleague just said about the growing militarization and then the prioritization of defense spending over like investment in gender equality. Like you can't talk about making peace if you're like pushing through walls. I will call upon them to make action, to be honest. Do what you say what you do. You can't tell us something today and tomorrow do the exact opposite. We need to start making concrete action. We had too many promises. Every day when we go to opportunity to conferences, they will say, okay, we are taking decision, we will do this, we will do that, and then tomorrow nothing. They are giving us promises. And then I think what we need right now are action. We need to see concrete action of what you talked about. And I think that a few the strategies that you can consider should be like policy and financial commitments. Like governments must adopt feminine policy across sector, including defense, trade development, and allocate scientific resources to support the implementation of those policies. They should protect and support, like we should provide long-term and flexible funding for women-led organizations and implement secure measures for women by creating policies that promote safe and equitable labor practice, particularly for women in vulnerable sector. And I will add finally have an intersectional advocacy, like recognizing and address the diverse need of women because they are unique. Every woman is unique and have her diversity. So we should address the diverse need of women in policy development to ensure that all voices are included, particularly those of displaced women, minority, and youth. So I think those few points should be enlightened. We should really take them into consideration because they will be the key point for our future.
Thank you, Mama, for ending us off on a really strong note and a reminder that, we're all here to advocate for the most affected and the most unheard. And so to really be mindful of that. And I also really enjoyed when you talked about chronic underfunding. I think that is a really good way to put it. It actually reminded me of this concept of slow violence. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but it really speaks to kind of all these institutionalized barriers that are put in place for, underrepresented, again, most affected people. And so that's how we really, institutions perpetuate the cycle of slow violence and, continuously leaving people behind. So really thank you for that reminder. And thank you to all our W7 advisors for this wonderful roundtable discussion. It's been an honor to be in conversation with all of you. And it's been great to meet you all today and learn more about your work. And so now I want to pass it back to Alice.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for these questions and for the reasoning you put on our virtual table today. Unfortunately, Shelleen, our colleague that is based in Kenya, there is a bad storm today, and so she lost completely the connection, and she has not electricity to plug her phone, unfortunately. So with the help of Sophia, we are gonna moderate also the Q&A discussion today. So I would like to ask our participants if you have any questions, any curiosities, please write into the chat. And in the meanwhile, I would like to ask, maybe with another round of answers to our advisors. So you work together with other advisors, international advisors from more than 40 countries, as Martina also mentioned in our introduction, to the communique, so to the report that is submitted to the Global 7 and presented by Women 7 to the politicians, both the prime ministers, but also on the other side, all the ministers. In charge with the let's say the women and girls equalities and this kind of ministers. So I would like to ask you if you see any connection between the outcomes of Women 7 2024 Italy with the Beijing Global Review. So we are at the end of 2024. Next year is going to be the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration. So would you see any connections between the outcomes of the communique of Women 7 into the new path for the future that we are asked to reach in 2025? Maybe we can go through the same circle. So I leave the floor to Ebony first.
Thank you, Elise. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great question. So I think we'll see similarities in terms of the emerging trends, which Mama also spoke to. So thinking about the rise of AI and technology facilitated violence, also thinking about technology facilitated warfare. We'll see connections with the climate crisis cutting across everything. So climate, humanitarian, development nexus, thinking about all those things together. I think climate-related migration, climate-related conflict, I think we'll see crossovers there. I think also what's important is actively finding these crossovers to have to strengthen our messaging, so that as feminist activists, as we're working together across different sort of international forums, I think it's really beneficial if we are able to come together and see what the similarities are in what we're advocating for and be really clear about those advocacy points so that we can be strategic wherever we are and be really strategic and clear about the messaging and the priorities. And I think particularly funding is something that constantly comes up in every activist and feminist space I'm in. There's always this recognition of chronic underfunding. And I think, Sophia, your words around slow violence are very apt there, thinking about the intentionality of chronic underfunding really inhibiting transformative change. So how can we be aware of this, share our experiences of these barriers, and also share our points of advocacy so that across all of these international forums and declarations and commitments and communiques, the feminist movement is strong and effective.
So this is according what we had during the W7 Italy, like from the 40 different countries, like more than around 80 advisor from like different countries, different background, and we had really we can say diverse voice in our W7 this year. And actually for me it was the first time that I was part of the W7 with Italy. So as Mama told, the inclusive, the including of the different voices is important. And what we had the W7 also was one of the achievements is these diverse voices from different countries, and also we had different committee. Like we had this opportunity to work like a committee of just for peace and security, women, peace and security, climate change, labor, like gender-based violence, and different aspect of like what we have also in Beijing Declaration also. So the communique of W7 was really what we wrote on the communique, what recommends all of these advisor was really related to like Beijing Declaration. And but however, we know, we understand, like now we are 2024, and we are just like all of countries in Beijing Declaration agreed on to take a action, and like to work on toward to achieving gender equality and gender equity. But unfortunately we are not seeing like these actions. And in a state rising demilitarization and rising crisis and climate change also affect the policies, the action of the states toward the gender equality and gender equality. I believe we had the backlash according to gender equality in many countries. Like, for example, the law of abortion in many countries is now is changing. And like in Afghanistan, we have gender apartheid. In Iran, we have it in many countries. And this is unfortunately what we are saying, what we are advocating actually as civil society. It's we had done our efforts, like we had done our advocacy, but it depends really to states how much they can like take this action and take this recommendations seriously, and put it on the center of their policies. But we are, according, like Ebony told, the funding was one of the topics that many times come up, and like we talked a lot. The women-led initiative, they don't have it really, this funding, and that's why they are not able to do what they want to do. So as Mama told, also addresses this topic in her speech. And yeah.
Thank you very much. Mama, you have anything to add? What is your point?
I think my points were like as Shahrbanu and Ebony said, I think we will see few similarity, and especially on the cybersecurity part, and then the emerging technologies, and then most definitively about the inclusion of girls and young women and youth in like decision making, and then the different processes, because we have been lobbying about this through the years, and then especially these years, I think it was the objective of many organizations or many institutions to include youth and then young women and girls in their advocacy, and to be able to get their point of view, and then to insert them in like their advocacies, their paper. So I think we will see more of it. We'll see it more, and then I think that's something that we will definitively see a lot of similarity, because many organizations, I think people start to understand that if you want to find a solution to a problem, you should firstly ask the target or the people that are directly involved or directly suffering from the problem. You can't just give a solution just because you think that may fit. You give a solution reflecting of the need of the people that are suffering or affected by this problem. So I think we will definitively see more of those few things. And apart from that, I think I would definitively agree with what my fellow my fellow young women have said, and then I will go in with the same way.
Thank you very much. We have another question for you from Pat Black. So, do you think there is one priority area we should all be lobbying all levels of government on, or do we get better outcomes by concentrating on changing things locally according to local needs?
I've got some thoughts on this, but I think it's a really interesting question, and I'm really keen to hear what other people say. My thoughts are it's about situating it in the local context while also having visibility of transnational struggles against linked systems of oppression and transnational movements of solidarity and seeking justice. And I was thinking of the example of feminist foreign policy, for instance, and there's a lot of conversation around, is it important that if nation states adopt feminist foreign policy, that it's called feminist foreign policy? And I've heard a lot of people say, well, perhaps the naming doesn't matter so much because maybe the word feminist has specific connotations which make it an insurmountable barrier for the governments to sign on to. But if the same values underpin the policy and work can get done to progress those, to progress towards that goal, maybe that's something that we should be accepting and utilizing. So I think it's similar for achieving shared visions of justice and equality. I think it's about rooting it in local context, local language, local demonstrations or manifestations of that, while also being aware of the transnational connections, because that's also a source of solidarity and resourcing and shared strategies and things. But I'm really keen to hear what other people think as well.
For me, I believe we cannot choose one of them. We need, I guess, we need to have both of them at the same time, uh, because localization is one thing, and it's really important for uh, to address the need of the local people, and also at the same time, what's going on in like the in global level, and like rising militarization and like I guess the first thing for me it's to try to stop this like rising militarization and conflict and crisis in so many countries like Middle East, like even in Ukraine. So we need to try to focus maybe at the first on this to stop this. It's militarization and conflict and crisis, and also you know, globalization and feminist transition. I guess we need to this solidarity among the feminist movements from around of the world to address the injustice from the all in each country, you know, because if there is in one country, if there is injustice toward the women, it will not stay that place, and it will be transformed to other places. So we need to address it, and we need to this solidarity among the feminist movements from the around of the world. And W7 this year it was a really good opportunity, you know, because it connected more than 80 people and more than 80 feminists from different civil society, different movement, feminist movement, to come together, to connect to each other, and also to make this solidarity to work together, to address, to lobby for what's going on, and for the backlash of on feminist movement, like women rights around the world. I guess we need, personally, I believe we need both of them, and at the same time, we can improve this to achieve gender equality.
Um, I definitely agree that we should have the two of them, because sometimes you will see that we should be unified to have like we should form like one voice for like a specific like aspect. We can find like similitude with like one problem that everyone do have in the like local area in the country. We will see that I have this problem in Mali. Um, Someone else will have the same problem in, for example, Italy, in Afghanistan. Someone else will have it in Kenya. Someone else will have it in Australia. I don't know. And then I think we should, if we identify that we have the same problem, we should come together. We should come together as the same person to reflect on that problem and then to speak more of it, saying that if you see that this problem has been like has been seen in different countries, so many countries, that means that there is like a serious problem, and then we should definitely address that problem to find a solution, because it's something that have been seen everywhere. But at the same time, there are some problem that is like that is unique to the country. That is like it's the environment, it's the reality of the country that's like that has created the problem. So we can't have like a common thinking about it. But sometimes if it's like a problem that have been seen everywhere, even if it's like there is a slight differences, it's actually the same thing. So I think we can come together to find solution to that problem, to address to address it, and then to lobby for like the solution that we think like fit for the problem for everyone. And sometimes you just have a problem that is unique to your country. Yes, you can use like expertise from other people, but at the end of the day, it's your reality. So you should apply it to how things are going or working in your side. So that's how I think.
Thank you so much for all your answers. There's another question in the chat from Maureen. And I don't know if Maureen, you want to unmute yourself and expand, but the question is, what are your recommendations to and for W7 in 2025 so that we move forward on gender equality? Anyone who has thoughts?
I will go with this one because my laptop is dying, so I'm trying to respond before this die, and then I'll let you. So I may say that really continuing like opening spaces for youth, because we have a lot to say. Sorry, we want to make changes. We are the actor of changes. We all like we will be the one like if I may say, using the world and everything inside of it for tomorrow. So I do think that we should prioritize having us more in spaces so that we can give our input, because sometimes people always say, you're young people, you don't understand this, you don't understand that. But if you don't ask us, how are you going to know that we don't know about it? Or how are you going to know what we are thinking about at this precise moment? So I do think that they should continue bringing more young people, young women, young girls, definitely from grassroots level, because we know the reality of the environment. We know what is happening in real time. So we can give definitely more input and more concrete like input or statements to issues. So continue bringing girls, young women, and youth from grassroots level, from different regions, but bringing women with in all the diversity to like, so that we can come and then agree, share experiences, and then bringing our voice to the table to make meaningful impact.
Oh, sorry, Shahrbanu, you go.
No, you can go. Okay. So
Okay, thank you. I absolutely agree with Mama. I think really powerful call there around meaningfully including young people's voices to drive advocacy and young people's voices at a grassroots level. I think that's integral. I also think we just do more of what we've pushed for in this 2024 communique. So I think pushing for more accountability of states, especially when they have commitments and international commitments, including commitments to international law. And I think specifically around the women, peace and security agenda, I think we should be pushing for a vision of peace, which is not the absence of conflict, but being really transformative and hopeful and creative about what peace means and for who, and really striving for that. My 2 cents.
Yeah, I also completely agree with my two fellow advisors and the panel. So I also agree with like including marginalized group in W7 2025, and also including the voice of the people who were not uh, before in W7 many times, and probably more from Global South, and also continuing this intersectional approach advocacy. It's really important, I guess, and we need it really to achieve the gender equity actually, and not just talking about the gender equality and also gender equity. It's really important, and also talking more about the peace and security that really we need it in the world that we are the militarization, the conflict is increasing. So and full participation of women in decision-making tables, and again the putting center on the budget, gender sensitive, like budgeting, the funding, the plan, the strategies, the initiatives. It would be really important to like continue on this talking this topic, to continue and to push it a little bit, to we can achieve what we are we want to achieve.
Thank you. Yeah, Sophia, you wanted to add something?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. And if we have just a few minutes, I have one final question for you all that can be very, very quick. But if you had one wish that could be granted tomorrow, what would you like G7 countries to do to meaningfully include marginalized groups and civil society? What is like one wish of an action you wish they would take tomorrow that would significantly change what it looks like for civil society to be represented in these spaces?
I guess hand over the power. Yeah, hand over the power for civil society organizations to make meaningful change, trust their expertise, fund them, and be willing to be disrupted because the current system is not working.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, having power for civil society grassroots movements can really change the system, and what's going on now, the system now, the current system is really not following the international law. So I can say if women also have at least half of this population on decision making, it will be one of my wishes, to have the women have this power of the decision making for the board.
I think I will agree with Ebony, having the power. I think definitely women-led organization should have the power. They should be given the power, especially civil society, because we know what we are fighting for, and then I think we will be in like we won't be the best, if I may say, but we will understand what needs to be done so that it can have the most like meaningful impact for the target, and then for girls and young women. and then having like for like opportunity, having like traveling to the same country over and again, and seeing the same people over and again, and seeing nothing happening. Like sometimes it makes you feel like why are they going there if for nothing to be done? So I think we should change this one. We should give the floor to people that can go and make meaningful impacted, make changes, not just like going, talking, and then coming back and then say that. We need concrete action. And then for this concrete action to happen, we need to give the floor to the people that can do what has to be done.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your answers and your hopes and wish for the future. I think that really, as you mentioned several times today, we together we can work to act. But yeah, please, Pat. I see your end.
Okay. As a colleague W7 advisor, can I say thank you to my three colleagues and to Sophia as well. This has been a wonderful session. Maureen has just put into the chat, she has been inspired by listening to you all, and so have I. I have been around, I'm afraid, in this arena for far too long. Women have been pushing for their rights, as Maureen knows, for many, many years. And I'm not quite as old as a suffragette, but probably getting on for that. So it's wonderful, absolutely heartwarming for me, and I hope for you, Maureen, to see these young women taking forward this agenda, not letting go of the need for gender equality, not letting that pushback have an effect on our advocacy, continuing to work for women and girls and defend their rights and take forward all of those local needs, as Mama keeps saying. It is grounded in that reality locally. I was truly inspired, Maureen, by the video that you showed at my club this week of the leadership foundation has been promoting, thanks to Sharon Fisher's previous presidential appeal. We have young women coming through in Kenya who are very enthusiastic, who will set up organizations locally, who will be moving things forward. And as long as that continues to happen, then I have great faith that we will make progress in the future. Over the years I have been involved, I've watched this pendulum swing backwards and forwards on women's rights and the things that women have managed to achieve and take forward. We're right in the middle of something called the UN Orange the World campaign at the moment to raise awareness of violence against women and girls. We had managed to reduce that a few years ago, but these last, I don't know, 5 years, perhaps 2 years, that has increased enormously, especially with the conflict zones that there are in the world. So we can go backwards, but we can also move forwards again. And it's young women like you who will take us forward. I don't know if you want to add to that, Maureen, but please join the Youth Forum, sign up for the W7. You may not get your application accepted, but carry on with that wonderful work that you're doing. Thank you for this morning.
I unfortunately I have got a really dreadful cold, and when I start to talk, I start to cough, which is why I've been keeping silent. But I have to say, I concur with everything that Pat has said this morning. I have been so inspired by each of you. You're just amazing. But we need to get your voices and what you're saying out there. And I have this big fear that the Youth Forum is going to die. And I need the people who are on the steering group to really help Alice in moving forward, because we need to get you taking ownership of that Youth Forum and moving with it. And don't let anybody stop you. Please do not let anybody stop you. If they stop you, we will set up another one somewhere else, because you are the future, and it is your actions as to how we will achieve gender equality in the future. So I'm going to stop there before I start to cough.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your words and your support. So I would like to close this webinar by saying that, yeah, I believe this is the time to act. Everyone today talking have described this moment as the time to act, and the time to act also for young girls and young women. So I also would like that to know that we are not alone. So as mentioning today, being together as groups of people, even if we are, in different areas, geographical areas, we are all connecting thanks to digitalization, actually. So I really would like to thank our speakers and panelists of today. Thank you, Sophia, for the excellent moderating experience that you share with us, and you had the ability to really drive us into the world of Women 7 and the world of how young girls and young women's part of W7 Italy to this year, but also part of other organizations can work and act together. So thank you to all the participants that join us today. And yeah, you're gonna see maybe some reports on the website of Soroptimist International, and for sure from our accounts on social media, and especially LinkedIn, I would say. So yeah, if any one of you would like to join the Soroptimist International Youth Forum, just write to us. We will be really happy to host you and organize other panels as the one of today. Thank you to all, and have a great evening, night, morning, and afternoon, wherever you are located in our amazing world. Thank you. Thank you, Mama. Thank you, Ebony. Thank you, Shahrbanu, for being with us today.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.